Welcome to Side Effects, effect versus affect. It's hard to know the difference. At McGohan Brabender, our goal is to provoke you to think differently about employee benefits, your employees, and the status quo. That's why it's Side Effects with an A. Join me, Kenzie McEvily, an MB co-host and one of the industry's brightest guests to dive deep into the process of good employee benefits. Let's get started. Welcome back to episode 2 of our 5-part podcast series describing the new member journey with my guest, Director of Strategy and Innovation at McGohan Brabender, Dave Homan. If you haven't listened to the last show, drop everything you're doing and go back to episode number 107, where Dave shared the problems HR and management are facing in the workforce today. The pandemic has shifted workplace trends, while younger generations are requesting non-traditional benefits as they work remotely and navigate the Great Resignation. We left listeners on a cliffhanger about how traditional benefits like medical, dental, vision aren't satisfying the Zoomers and Millennials. So, what do they want? What will keep them at their jobs? Are there other benefits companies need to offer? Without further delay, welcome back Dave Homan to the show. Hi Dave, how are you today?
I'm doing great.
And we are back with episode 2 of our 5-part podcast series about the new member journey.
Very excited to be back here.
Yes, and I was just thinking, this is a milestone time in our life, maybe compared to the Affordable Care Act or something that's really going to change healthcare forever. And how did you get the name New Member Journey to call it this?
Well, member journey comes from customer journey, and customer journey has been around forever in the consumer products industry. And they kind of go through decision trees and come up with that flow. And I started mapping out with a group of people here at McGohan Brabender a couple of years ago. We started looking at what that experience or that pathway looked like. And we realized that it was so siloed and disconnected, and there wasn't really a path. There were just all these independent experiences, but they didn't all meld together on a journey. And so we decided that we were going to not only figure out what it is currently, if anything, but what we would like it to be. Let's create what we want that member journey to be in moving forward.
So you heard it here first, folks. Member journey. That's what the world is turning into right now.
Yes, patent pending.
So last episode, we established the problem and how the world has changed since COVID, with the workforce is happening, all these new trends. So we hinted what we wanted to accomplish as McGohan Brabender, but what do these younger generations want?
Well, I think if we're going to tee up the conversation, let's look at it in terms of the traditional benefits and the non-traditional benefits.
Okay.
Non-traditional benefits are actually going to be a lot more fun and provocative to talk about.
Yes.
But even starting with the traditional benefits, let's look at the medical plan. And we talked about it in the last episode that for the Zoomers, the youngest generation right now in the workplace, medical isn't even a sexy benefit for them. It's not one of those really critical, important benefits that they're looking at first, because most of them are still on their parents' plan.
Correct.
And they will be until they're forced off their parents' plan. So it's not important to them. You also look at medical, it used to be very important to my generation, Gen Xers, because we were marrying at a much younger age.
Correct.
We were starting families, and so we were concerned about maternity, pediatricians,
A rich benefit plan.
Yeah, the rich benefit plans. And we were, that was important to us. But you look at the younger generations, they're starting their families later. They're more proactive, I would say, to a degree, because they know a lot more about their health. They're much more into the physical fitness, and they're much more of the endurance athletes at a younger age than we had with either the boomers or the Gen Xers. So the medical plan, richer isn't always better for them once they go on the plan, because the richer benefits inevitably will cost more out of pocket. If they're not using their medical benefit for things other than preventive care for the most part, or the weekend warriors that have the
I was just
occasional
going to bring
torn
up the weekend
meniscus
warriors.
or something like that. I mean, you're going to hit that deductible, and then you're kind of sitting pretty. Anything that you have those types of injuries. So, I think what we're starting to find out, and what the data will tell us, and we'll talk about it in the next episode, is they would actually prefer a lower tiered medical option that costs them less money out of pocket, but gives them different options and opportunities to receive care. For example, this is the generation that is native to telemedicine.
Yes.
COVID forced everybody to grow up about the importance of telemedicine.
Yep.
Before that, it had been a commodity. It had been a luxury. It's something that you add in.
It was kind of fun. Like, oh, I'm on vacation. Let me call my doctor real quick and get this prescription.
Yeah,
rare.
I've got pink eye. I don't want to go to the doctor. And what happened is, with most groups or most cases that are out there, it served a very highly specialized, focused area. Now they're finding out through telemedicine everything they could do during COVID. It forced them to grow up really quickly.
Right.
They're starting to expand what types of care can be provided, how they can integrate that with other specialized services, and actually start to deliver a lot of specialty telemedicine care. And so an example is, you could be a patient in South Dakota and go to a telemedicine kind of intermediary, and they go in there and they can run some basic diagnostic tests, have special equipment, and they hit a button, and you're suddenly doing a consult with somebody from the Mayo Clinic or the Cleveland Clinic. So it's opening a whole world of opportunity. Probably where the greatest growth I see telemedicine experiencing in the next few years is with behavioral health telemedicine.
Yes, that's a huge, huge topic. The mental health world is just absolutely blowing up. So what other things did the Zoomers and Millennials want regarding the mental health aspect, their EAPs?
Well, I think they're struggling so much with COVID having come about.
Yeah.
Because they were locked down. The Zoomers are a very, very social group of people, and suddenly they were forced to isolate and be away from people and be separate. On top of that, that's a generation that is heavily reliant on social media.
Oh,
and
you won't say.
I don't want to be mean about that, but everybody else's life is a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
They go on the most fabulous vacations. They're always out at parties. They're always smiling. They have their hair looks perfect in the poses.
Yep.
And
after probably 100 different photos trying to get the perfect shot.
And so you look at those and you think, why can't my life be like that? And the reality is, it's not. Everybody struggles with the same things, but when you look at other people always having something better than you do, mentally that wears thin on you. So there's such a shortage. There was a shortage before COVID on mental health benefits. That's typically where programs get cut, where benefits are tapered back. And so there's a huge need and a void for that. And even right now, what they're trying to do is use telemedicine to fill that void. And you're starting to see a lot of apps that are being creative.
Oh, for sure.
That are being created so that people can do some self-care. They can do some things to kind of guide themselves through rough parts, but then get help when they need it. And you're starting to see all these behavioral health companies starting to really come out of the woodwork. I really see there being an explosion. But the problem is, there's a finite number of people that can deliver that care right now. And so they're creating these new services, but there's a premium cost that comes with kind of getting pushed to the front of the queue line.
Exactly.
Because so many of these vendors are using the exact same resources to get the care. And it's a matter of the highest bidder gets the care up front.
Right. And I think now when we think about the younger generations with the rich benefits, EAP is top of the line. And McGohan Brabender actually has a really incredible EAP program. I think we have 5 of our first telehealth sessions with a therapist is free. And those are the kind of things that are intriguing now. And it's not I don't think it's even taboo anymore to be like, oh yeah, I go to a therapist, or oh yeah, like mental health is so important now.
And it's not that the Generation Xers or the Boomers have any less problems. It's not like we figured anything out. We have the exact same problems. You had a great point. There was a stigma attached to mental health, and that was something you didn't talk about.
Oh yeah.
It was something that was very private, and even the older generations were just, your parents were telling you, just, pull up your big boy pants and just tough it out.
Right.
And that's taken its toll. I mean, we can have a whole nother episode on how that's messed us up, but they're very open about it. And I think it's great dialogue and recognizing it, and the fact that employers are becoming less fearful because they didn't know how to broach the subject.
It was
they
taboo.
Didn't know how to talk about it.
Yeah.
And the answer in the past was, oh, we have an EAP benefit.
But it was just in the corner, like on the last page of the benefit booklet. It was an afterthought at an open enrollment meeting. It was like, oh, by the way, we have this EAP benefit that doesn't cost anything.
And that's almost like it was sold. And one of the things that, as I talked to our account teams, I was telling them, when you're going out and doing these open enrollment meetings, you need to be leading with the EAP benefit and talking about that. And the survey data is telling us right now that employers are most fearful about the mental health of their population.
Right.
And so that you need to be talking about mental health every day with your employees.
Right. And as we are talking about Gen Xers, do you think your generation is adopting these technology advances? Are they okay with it? Are they okay doing telehealth? Do they want to be in person? Or
I think for them, with the Gen Xers, is the appeal to them is that it's more efficient. They don't have to waste the time to leave the office and drive across town and wait in a waiting room, and they can just be at their desk and they can be talking to somebody. But so for the Gen Xers, the real novelty there is the convenience.
Time savings.
Right. Because it's all about the work.
They're so used to taking care of others. They leave themselves kind of on the back burner, and now they can just call.
Yes.
So when I want to go back to the mindset kind of how millennials and Zoomers want to receive care, how do they like to engage with the healthcare system? And what about the HR team? Do they want to text their HR professionals, or what do they want to do to get in touch?
Well, and we'll talk a lot more about the data in the next podcast, but to kind of tease you with things, it depends on the situation. When there's a problem, they like to speak and talk about it face to face because they can certainly ask those follow-up questions or get a deeper understanding. When it's the everyday questions, or when they have they have to be able to multitask. When I'm talking on the phone, it's harder for you to multitask.
Yes.
The millennials and the Zoomers are very good and adept at multitasking.
Give us the live chat.
Yep. They want the live chat because then I can do 3 other things while I'm live chatting.
Yes.
And, whereas Gen Xers and Boomers, we're not as conditioned or native to multitasking as the younger generations. And so certainly they like to do things where I can be chatting, I can be returning an email, I could be looking for something on Amazon at the same time.
Yep.
And it fits into live chat is usually more flexible hours than talking to a person live on the phone. And there's such a shortage right now. Even when you call, you've got to sit there on hold for 15, 17, 20 minutes.
Yep. And they'll be with you shortly. And then you're waiting and you're waiting. You refresh. But live chat is my preferred method. And we talked in the last podcast about how we get our news. Twitter is how I get my news. And we joke a lot about how our attention spans have gone down significantly. We have to have longer ones than goldfish, correct?
Yeah.
7 seconds.
Attention span shorter than a goldfish. And the other thing is with the Zoomers, they shouldn't even have them be called smartphones anymore. No. They just want them smart devices, because the last thing Zoomers want to do is sit on the phone and have a phone conversation. And
Amen to that.
And I can, it's just not natural.
No.
Why do I need to sit on a phone and talk to you when I can text it, and I can use my abbreviations, carrying a conversation with pictures and emojis and abbreviations.
And we've talked about this before. If they don't like you or if they don't like it, they'll move on. They'll exit out. They'll go to the next project. So if we can reach them in the exact way they want to be reached first, right off the bat,
it's critical.
It's critical. You have a much better in. Yeah. So, okay. So we talked about traditional benefits a little bit. So let's go into the non-traditional benefits. Okay. What are some examples of these vapor benefits?
And I think we had talked about, I'll briefly touch on them. It's from the last episode, it's the unlimited PTO, the flexible work schedule, the
tuition reimbursement or student loan help.
Well, yeah, that's more that's I would say that's not even vapor benefits. Those are real tangible benefits that are out there. So we kind of have the work schedule benefits, and then you get into the things that are very important to them. Right now, you just nailed it. Tuition reimbursement is the most requested benefit that's not readily offered to employee populations right now.
Right.
And
why is that?
Well, that's because their student loan debt is huge. It's ginormous compared to some of the other generations that were out there.
Right.
And because that load is so big, that's affecting other areas of their life. And so paying that off is the most important thing to them. And up until now, the programs that have existed from the government have not been super favoritive in that area.
No.
I mean, they wanted you focusing on 401k and retirement, but I will say this, that recently they have acknowledged that there's going to be a trickle-down effect if we don't figure out a way to handle this. And I'm not going to be political in this and say that we're going to have student loan forgiveness for everybody, because that's not the solution. Everybody has to have skin in the game.
And what about the people that have already paid theirs off?
Exactly. And so what they're doing is they're changing the rules that are out there to make it more favorable, so that you're in a situation where you can pay off your student loan debt, but not sacrifice paying off that student loan debt for the sake of not giving to 401k, because you have to be looking at the past and looking at the future at the same time.
Exactly.
And so employers are being more creative in their approaches that they're taking for that.
And so I like how you kind of siloed. You're like, there's work, non-traditional benefits. They're the kind of fun benefits. And then what about, I know you have a whole list that you want to share.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, there is some weird stuff that's out there. and for many of our listeners, you're really going to have to go out and Google this afterwards. But I mean, we're seeing benefits and requests come out of the woodwork, things like NFTs, non-fungible tokens.
Yes.
And I'm kind of hoping in a future podcast episode, we can have someone on to talk about that.
Little
but that's growing, and it's important to a generation, and so you can't ignore that. That's out there. Things like HelloFresh subscriptions.
One of my favorite things.
We thought it was really cool when you had gym discounts for people.
Yeah.
The Zoomers want Peloton subscriptions. They want to be able to pick customized programs that are available to them. RECs, renewable energy credits. Now,
this is a new one.
This
I've never
is
heard
a new
of this.
one, and this is something. Just kind of write this down, set it aside, then set a reminder to check this out in 2 years. But this is a generation. And the millennials who are very cause-driven. The environment and sustainability is so incredibly important to them.
Right.
And they're concerned about kind of the direction the world is going in with sustainability. And so renewable energy credits is a benefit that you can give. It's almost like investments in your employees' futures where you help them become carbon neutral.
Right.
Or and help the planet. And you can also do that at the employer level. And even if you're a vendor out there for somebody, we're seeing a lot more in RFPs than we ever have before, where they want to know from vendors that big organizations, Toyota, Sony, Apple, Google, they want to know what your sustainability plan is as an organization. And so that's a benefit that you never in a million years would have thought about being out there.
HR needs to start preparing for those questions, at the end of an interview when they say, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah.
If that becomes a question, companies need to be prepared for that.
What's important to you?
Yeah.
What is most important in your life to you is a great question to ask. And not just about what you're looking for in an employer or what you're looking for in a job. Asking them because, like I said, millennials and Zoomers live 24/7 lives. There's not a separation between work and home. Everything is about work-life balance.
Yep.
So pet insurance.
The best topic of the day.
I know it is, and not because of current company excluded from both of us, but we are both dog lovers.
We are.
And pet insurance was something that a few years ago was new, but it was a novelty. It was a fringe benefit.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit. And
everyone got a pet.
And what happened during COVID? It's the biggest adoption rate for pets in the history of our nation. And so what's happening now is coming out of it, people are realizing, oh, it's not just that initial adoption fee.
They can be kind of expensive.
Yeah, these things are as expensive as kids. Maybe not that much, but
you never know.
Yeah. And so pet insurance is pretty important. And so when you're talking to Zoomers and millennials and you talk about requested benefits, pet insurance is always in the top 3 that's out there. Now, it's not just those 2 generations anymore. All the generations adopted pets during COVID.
Right.
So pet insurance is going to continue to grow in popularity that's out there.
It's huge. It's huge. So this is kind of a fun question for our HR professionals that are listening. They're having to change their recruiting techniques. So they used to maybe brag about the rich benefit plan with the medical and 401k. And so how are they going to start recruiting Zoomers? What do they say? How do they share about these recs and these NFTs?
Yeah. So let's take a step back and talk about the problem, what we're doing today. We have employers, and I'm going to use the dreaded term benefit booklet. And so many of employers have them, still use them today. And what they're doing with that benefit booklet is they're using it, that one piece, and recycling it, not just for open enrollment, for life event changes, but for a recruiting piece.
Right.
And when you look at those benefit booklets that you deliver during open enrollment, it's a technical piece, kind of like an IKEA manual or reading tax code. Many times it's a CYA document. And it talks about the how to use your benefit, but not why it's a spectacular benefit. And so they turn around and they want to use that as a recruiting piece to a prospective employee. And it's not accomplishing that goal.
It's kind of an easy button option, but it's not accomplishing the goal.
And I tell employers every day, you're better off coming up with a one-page handout that touts the joys and beauties of your benefit plan, why it's important to them, why they should care out there. And so, and even that piece, though, when you print it up and use the same piece for everybody, one size doesn't fit all.
Not anymore.
Millennials and Zoomers are used to having every single part of their life be personalized and customized. And the other generations have kind of evolved into that. I mean, look at your iPhone. You've got one, I've got one. We pulled them out side by side. We would find that there'd be more differences than there would commonalities. But we all expect that now, even with social media, who you follow, who you unfollow. When you're going in, when you're Uber, like you used to call Pizza Hut because Pizza Hut would deliver pizzas to you. You called Domino's because you got Domino's. Now you call Uber Eats and they can deliver 5,000 different restaurants because it's got to be customizable that's out there. And so make your benefit offering to that employee customizable. So before you deliver the benefits, ask them a few questions. what benefits are most important to you? Do you have a pet? Do you have student, is student loan repayment important to you? How important is retirement? Do you plan on staying on your parents' plan? We just want to know so we can talk about some of the other benefits to stress on there. You want to be careful. Obviously, you don't ask anything you can't ask or legally can't ask.
Right.
But you can really start to custom tweak the talk track that's out there. So then what you do is you go back and you can have 4, 5, 6 different versions of that one pager that stresses things that are most important to them.
Right.
Things that are of interest to them.
And that needs to be, I think, a major takeaway to our HR recruiters that are listening to this right now is ask more questions. It needs to be tailored to this employee because, for example, if they have loans they want to pay off, and you're talking to them in the interview, and then you realize that, whoa, that's a huge priority to them, then right then and there you can offer the options for them. Well, we have this program where you can do half to your 401k, half to your loans, or that can just recruit them so much easier and be like, well, I am picking them for their benefits, maybe not the old school ones, but these new ones I value, and
yes.
it mimics my lifestyle outside of the workplace.
Yes. And just asking some open-ended questions, because they may not even be benefit related, but they're things like, as you look ahead at your career and your future, what are some of the things that give you pause or makes you concerned? Financial health is so important to this younger generation because they have watched their parents go through 2 recessions, a global pandemic, and they are concerned that they're not going to have, and you read the news and they say, oh, this generation is the first one that's not going to have a better quality of life than their parents did. And so think about the little things. Think about the programs that you can plug and play that talk about financial health, financial wealth. Talk about the importance that your 401k vendor will meet multiple times. I know we do that at work with our 401k. That's huge. We announce those repeatedly over the course of the year. Do you want to sit down and talk about how things are performing and talk about what other expenses you have? Don't underestimate those conversations. But you see, in order for that to work, all of this we've talked about where everything is customizable and there's flexibility, you have to look at the framework of your benefit program, where one size doesn't fit all. There's not necessarily a set contribution for each benefit, and everything is voluntary, because that just doesn't work. That's not appealing, and employees will look other places to fulfill their needs. I'm going to bring up a term that we used a lot in the industry when I was coming up, and if you wait long enough, it all comes back into style out there. Cafeteria plans.
They are back, baby.
I really think that that's going to be a viable solution to make this work in the future, where an employer, instead of the employer deciding what is important for the sum whole of their workforce, letting the employees decide. So you're going to have different options, and the employee goes in and says, I have X amount of benefit dollars, and I can go out and spend them on what I want, what is most important to me. And that may mean even offering more options within a benefit. Like medical, I came up in a time where for a company of 200 people, it was not uncommon to see 3 medical options to choose from. High, medium, low. And as we go on then, and consumer-directed plans are brought into play, and then the mentality and approach that one size fits all it's easier to administer, less hassle, less for the employees to learn. A lot of employers have that one plan for everybody. And then they figure, well, I'll just throw more money if it's a high deductible plan towards their HSA, things like that. But it's only a valuable benefit if the employee sees a value in it. What I would challenge employers to look at is perhaps having a richer plan for those Gen Xers, for those boomers, for the millennials that have kids and responsibilities and bills and are worried about it,
right?
But offer kind of a lower, almost ACA minimum type plan
Yeah.
where you can then ratchet around it, where maybe instead of doing a high deductible plan there, you fund an HRA.
Right.
And you give them money so that should they need that care, should something come
A
up,
weekend warrior
they're
plan.
yes, they're covered.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, if they leave after 18 months and go someplace else, that money goes back into the company
Right.
benefit for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Or at the end of the year, it just resets itself. So it helps protect the employer financially, but gives peace of mind and options and flexibility to the employee.
Right. When did the cafeteria plan start? Do you remember? Because I
was
remember
back-
it being offered back when I first started.
Yeah, I want to say it was in the 90s, with late 90s, early 2000s were kind of the heyday.
Yeah.
And
A
then
la carte choices.
yeah, and then it kind of died down. And one of the reasons a lot of it died down is you saw the advent of the early benefit enrollment systems.
Okay.
And they were so limited in their scope and what they could do early on. So you had to simplify the rules to administer.
Right.
And so over time, that just kind of became the norm and the expectation. And you couple that with the fact that generally HR and benefit staffs are so thinly staffed right now.
Yes, they
And
are.
so the last thing you want to do is throw one more thing complexity wise on top of their laps. So it was kind of the perfect storm to make it go away.
Yeah.
But now I would say look at it again, because a lot of the systems, the payroll, enrollment, ben admin systems, are more sophisticated in their rules.
Yep.
And it's one of those where I'm not going to say it's going to be less work for the HR benefit staff, but it's a necessary evil. Would you rather spend a few extra minutes administering a benefit program, or worried going
About
to sleep
hiring.
at night about hiring and retaining
Exactly.
the employees?
Which is the lesser evil.
Yeah.
So another topic that I wanted to get into about the new age is coupon clipping is back.
Oh,
We're talking
yes.
perks, packages. Right now, I know MB is highly into this. So tell me a little bit about your perks package.
It is about the instant gratification.
Yes.
And for the Zoomers, a lot of it is about the gamification. There's that psychological high knowing that I won and I got the best deal that was out there.
Oh yeah.
And the benefits that a lot of the younger people, especially the Zoomers, have these benefits, but unless, like you said, unless you use it, it's not really
matter.
valuable to them. A perks package is something that's a fantastic benefit to give your employees, because it gives them instant gratification, instant savings in their pockets.
Yep.
Now, the challenge there is somebody's got to get it. Somebody's got to administer it. Somebody's got to go out and find the bargains and the deals, and who's going to handle the questions when
It's hard to
problems come up.
update. Yeah.
It is. And so it's been kind of clunky to this point. And we went out at McGohan Brabender, we saw that was a need. And we wanted to not give employers an idea and just throw more on their plate. And so one of the things that we've done, and our team specifically has worked on, is we are going to be offering MB Perks, which is a perks discount program for all of our customized program for our clients, all of their employees at no cost. It's just one of those things of working with McGohan Brabender, but it covers everything from oil changes to dinner at your favorite Mexican restaurant. To you're going down on spring break, Disney tickets, Universal Studios. So, but what that does is that gives them instant gratification.
Oh yeah.
And there's a convenience factor. You're not cutting coupons.
No.
It's an app that's on your phone, which appeals to which
to our generation. And a cool thing about it is it knows your location, so it'll notify you when you're near a deal, which is probably the most satisfying thing you can get on your phone. Like, oh, I wasn't hungry, but I have a 20% off coupon. Maybe I'll go get dinner there tonight. That is the age we live in right now. That is so gratifying. Exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Yes.
But as we built this program, this is one of those examples where it wasn't just a benefit that you throw out there. We thought about it. In order for this to be successful, it needs to be personalized, needs to be customizable, needs to offer an immediate dividend to them, and needs to fit in their lifestyle.
Right.
And I doubt if anybody in the world is driving around without their cell phones, their smartphones.
Not anymore.
And so it's right there where it pings you, you use it, instant gratification. And so suddenly you feel like I got a benefit from my employer that I see as being valuable.
Exactly. So wrapping up this podcast here, though, part 1, we talked about the world we live in, the problems we're facing. This episode, we really hit on what millennials and Zoomers want and how HR can recruit and retain these generations. So our next podcast, we're done talking about the problem and we're going to start talking about some solutions. So can you tell our listeners what to expect for part 3 here?
Well, I think what we're going to do is we're actually going to start, think of this as a working lab where we are sending out, we'll have the survey data collected from employers, the employer populations, and we'll be able to actually share some data with you and tell you that we've been telling you what we believe is most important to your employees.
Right.
We're going to validate whether or not
Proof,
our
receipts.
hypotheses are accurate.
Right.
And then what we'll do is we'll start building and actually putting together, here's some things that don't require a huge lift, tweaks that you can make to be more competitive in your benefit offerings, and at the end of the day, offer something that's perceived value and is appreciated by employees.
Exactly. So this next podcast, we're teasing here that we will actually show the remapping of the member journey, and we'll have proof and data and results to do that.
Yep.
So.
We'll share everything along the trip with you.
Yep. So Dave, thank you again for joining us. I'm so excited to keep going on this process. And to our listeners, if you have any questions or comments, like always, about this new member journey, please email me at kenzie@healthierbirthdays.com.
Or Dave@healthierbirthdays.com.
Yep. And we will see you next time on Side Effects.